Special thank you to Zenab for taking her time out today to support this workshop. My name is Aeola and I'm one of SEKY's content creators. I am a rising sophomore at the U of M studying graphic design. I'm co-hosting this workshop alongside Medha, who will introduce herself.
Hi y'all, my name is Medha. I am another one of SEKY's content creators and I'm a rising junior at the U of M.
Awesome. Thank you, Medha. We also have Yayua, who's our SEKY creative director, and she will be facilitating the Zoom room, so she'll be looking at like chat messages and anything of the sort. But yeah, moving on, just going to take a moment to introduce SEKY and what we do, and literally just reading off the screen. SEKY is an arts platform that empowers eclectic individuals by providing recognition, support, and resources. In particular, we aim to connect with marginalized and underrepresented audiences. To us, an eclectic individual is someone who lives their life boldly and unapologetically. So handing it off to Medha, she will start talking about the purpose of the workshop.
Okay, so obviously there's a lot of people right now that are getting more involved in the Black Lives Matter movement as it's kind of gaining more mainstream attention. And with that, we have a lot more people going to protests and taking photos. And so we wanted to just really emphasize the importance of taking a minute to reflect on why you're actually taking photos. So it's really important to check yourself for performative activism, which is where you're doing things to kind of show to other people that you're supporting the movement, like oh, I'm woke, I'm going to protest kind of thing. And it's understandable to want to take protest photos or videos because they can be really powerful, but it's very important that you are taking the proper precautions to protect the identities of the people that you are taking photos or videos of. So the reason why it's important to take these steps is because in the past, law enforcement have used photos and videos from protests to track either the movement of protests as a whole or track down individual protesters. And so that is something that can put people at risk of arrest or threats or even violence. And there is a history of these kinds of things happening before. So Aeola will get into that.
Awesome, thank you, Medha. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit of mini history, and just to emphasize the importance of concealing identity, I do want to give a trigger warning. We do talk about suicide, so if you are uncomfortable with this topic, please just lower the volume of your computer, and Yayo will text in the chat once it is over, so be on the lookout for that. I'm just going to give everyone like 10 seconds to lower their volume if needed. Okay, let's get into it. All right, so this is a very well-known capture from the Ferguson protests in 2014. This is Edward Crawford, and he is returning a tear gas canister fired by police who were trying to disperse protesters. And in May of 2017, he allegedly shot himself after telling acquaintances he had been distraught over personal issues, the police said. So amid lingering anger, activists and observers say that while they see no clear connection between the deaths and the protests, they can't help but wonder the thoroughness of the investigations. Activists say that in the years since the protests, they have been targeted in dangerous ways. It is so very important to conceal the identities of your fellow protesters. And let's talk about metadata. So what is it? Metadata is the digital information provided by photos, which can easily be used to identify people's faces through facial recognition softwares, track location of the shot, and what device the photo is uploaded from. So this is why it's important to wipe metadata before sharing your photos. And Medha, you can take it from here.
Awesome. So yeah, basically the two things we're going to talk about are wiping your metadata and also concealing identifying features. And Zenab is going to get into that later and also show you guys live demos of how to do these things. But one really important thing to keep in mind with metadata is that no matter what device you take your picture from, whether it's a phone, a DSLR, whatever it may be, there will be metadata attached to that photo. And so you need to go through the process of wiping it. And then one more thing is that your metadata stays with the photo, even if you rename it, resave it, or compress it. So yeah, just always clear the metadata. And if you're going to be sharing your photos live on social media, like as you're at the protest site, you're going to want to disable your location, because even if you've wiped all the metadata, like obviously these apps can say where you are. So you're going to just want to go into your settings, and then see, yeah, settings, privacy, location services, and then you should be able to turn it off for individual apps. That's it for this slide.
All right, one last thing before we get into the workshop, so just bear with me for just a little longer. The rest of the agenda today really just includes Zenab's demo, and then we'll have time for open questions, and then we'll say our goodbyes. So yeah. We will start our workshop. So I'm going to be handing it off to Zenab.
Hi everyone. I clearly do not look like that right now, so please don't mind. But my name is Zenab. I just graduated from the University of Minnesota, and on the side, I started freelance photography about 6 years ago. So I haven't gotten out there and been able to take pictures at protests, but I have been editing and doing all the steps that have been spoken about for my friends. And so I think that this topic is really important, and I don't think a lot of people take it into consideration, but it's really beneficial and really important for the safety of everyone. So yeah, so obviously, like, hit me up if you need any help. If you can't do it yourself or at all, then feel free to email me, go to our website, go there, or go to Instagram and just contact me, and I'm definitely willing to edit anything that you need me to. Awesome. So just a little overview. There really are like 3 ways that you can edit a picture to prepare it after you're at the protest to post it. Photoshop is probably the best way to go about it when it comes to retaining the quality of the final image. We all know that Photoshop is one of the best tools out there to edit a photo, and it really makes it so you don't have to worry about the end quality of the actual image. So I recommend Photoshop if you have access to it, of course. Image Scrubber is an awesome website online, and it's also available on mobile, and it's a good alternative to Photoshop. You can't export images of that high quality, but you can still retain pretty decent amount of quality with them, and it's really good for iPhone photos as well, where iPhone photos it's a little harder to get rid of metadata. And the last thing is an app called Touch Retouch. While it's not free, it's definitely a cheaper alternative than Photoshop, and it allows for like the same amount of editing capabilities, and it's a really powerful app in general to edit photos, and especially for this. So yeah, I'm just going to get into the first part of the workshop, which is just showing you all how it works inside Photoshop. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so when it comes to editing protest photos within Photoshop, this is just like a stock image, not a real protesting image of any means, but it's really important to not go the route of just blurring the image, because I feel like that's like everyone's instinctive option. People assume that, oh, I'm just gonna go in Photoshop, go to the blur tool, and kind of just go and like do this to like their faces, and that's gonna be okay. And while at the time of posting that might seem okay, it's really easy to undo blurring. There's devices out there, there's softwares out there that can really easily undo that blurring that you do, no matter what you do to the image afterwards. So it's really important not to go that route. So there's like 3 basically options within Photoshop that I think are successful when it comes to editing things better than just blurring. My personal favorite is the smudge tool, which I don't think a lot of people actually use that often, but I really like this tool because it still will retain the image itself, but like will really do a good job concealing people's identity. So obviously this is the most like attractive thing ever, but it definitely does a better job than just blurring. And you can really go in and obviously, like, if you're a little bit more picky with Photoshop, then you can go in and really perfect the way that it looks. But this gives almost the effect of a blur, but it's more effective end result, because you don't have to really worry about someone being able to revert this back to the original image. So that's one option. Another option is just plainly painting over it with the brush tool. When you do this, make sure that the opacity is really high, and that you can do it to any color, but like a darker color works better. So in this one, I just have like a skin color kind of selected. This is probably the easiest option. You don't really have to worry about much with this option, and you can kind of just do anything really with whatever, and on anyone's faces. And the nice part about just brush effects is that this is possible on like an iPhone app too. You don't really need Photoshop to do this. And then the last option is just the spot healing brush, which I like doing this with the create a texture instead of content aware or proximity match, because create texture just does kind of similar to what a brush tool does. It fills in the space with a nice texture so that it still will retain that, and like it will still feel like an image that isn't edited that much, but it will still conceal the identities of the protesters. So those are really the three ways that I think that's the best way to like conceal the identities of protesters. When it comes to metadata, so let's say like you want to export this, for exporting it without metadata, as Medha said, that it's really hard to, if you just save the picture, the metadata will stick with the picture. So the easiest way is to go to export as, and save for web. And then obviously when you click JPEG here, it's going to give you the option for metadata right here. And you can change this to none. And that's the easiest way to save the image without metadata within Photoshop. And again, that's probably the best way if you want to retain the end quality of the image, to do it within Photoshop, then carry the image to any external website or anything like that. So that's that for Photoshop. For Image Scrubber, for anyone that isn't familiar, Image Scrubber is an online website that's available on mobile and web, and it's a really nice, handy tool for anyone who doesn't have access to Photoshop. It has similar tools that Photoshop does. So let's say you have this image again, and obviously this image has no metadata because it's taken off Google, but Image Scrubber will automatically remove metadata. You don't really have to make it take an extra step on it. So you can use it just for removing metadata on images, or you can pull it in here and actually edit it within the website itself. You can do paint and just put little paint marks on top of images, or, and for undo, you can just get rid of it, things like that. Or you can do blur, and their blur is a little bit more dense than like a blur in Photoshop. So this is an effective way to edit it as well. So like, I think that if you don't have access to Photoshop, then this is definitely the next best tool, because it will still allow you to really edit an image and still retain that quality. And finally, the last thing is Touch Retouch, which is an app, and I just have like the website about the app on here because it's harder to do an app live demo. But the nice part about this app is that it's really powerful, and it has actually an object removal tool within the app. So it's really like, think Photoshop, but like a little bit almost smarter sometimes, and it allows for like really advanced editing. And as I said before, while it is paid, it will have the similar features as the smudge tool and the spot healing brush tool do in Photoshop. It's very similar to that, just in an app form. And then again, if you do choose an app, then do you have to remember that the metadata will still stick with the photo, so then you would have to pull it into Image Scrubber on your phone to then remove the metadata. So those are really the three easiest options for editing an image to get it ready to share it online. Obviously, as Medha said, it's really important that your intention behind taking these pictures and editing them and posting them is very much clear, and it's not just performative. And yeah, and of course, as I said before, if it's really, this is all daunting information and you'd feel like you can't do this at all, then feel free to email me or message me, and I definitely would be willing to help you edit your pictures. So yeah, that's all on my end for the workshop. portion.
Awesome, thank you, Zenab. We will just open this time for questions if anyone has anything.
It says, which method do you prefer to use? I think that if you're looking at purely retaining the quality of the end result of the image, then I definitely think Photoshop, if it's available to you, then Photoshop's definitely the most powerful tool. But obviously the other options are very close. And at the end of the day, it's like the safety feature is the most important thing. So as long as, whatever means possible, as long as you do these steps, that's all that really matters. But Photoshop is my personal favorite, I guess.
Vivian had the question, which methods in Photoshop are reversible?
I think by reversible, you mean like that can be undone. It's the blur. Long story short, just don't blur your image, or just don't blur the people's faces that you're trying to conceal. That's not enough. It's really easy to undo that.
So yeah, so these are the resources that we have included into today's presentation. This presentation will be available on our Facebook and Instagram once the workshop is over, so be on the lookout for that. And again, if you do not have access to any of these tools, feel free to reach out to Zenab and she will edit your protest photos free of charge.
Thank you guys for joining us. You guys should check out Zenab because she's really talented. So here's her IG, Facebook, and website. And you can also follow us. You can follow SEKY on Facebook and Instagram. Yeah, and if you wanted to reach out to Zenab, you can probably, what would be the best contact form for you, Zenab? Like just Instagram DMs or Facebook message?
Like whatever. My email is on my website. There's a contact form on my website too, but I feel like Instagram is the most relaxed way to contact me than like have to go through a contact form of any sorts. So yeah, Instagram, hit up my Instagram DMs if you need my help.
Okay, well, that was pretty much the end of the workshop. Thank you to everyone who stuck out until the end. And yeah, we hope to see you guys around. But yeah, have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.